Happy holidays, everyone! Since I haven't done something like this yet, I figured this year would be the year I do some sort of Christmas-related video. It's the holiday season, and there are plenty of movies and specials I've grown up with that I can talk about for a good video topic. Thankfully, there's one Christmas special that I definitely wanted to talk about for a particular reason. But in order to get to that reason, I gotta give some background to it. So, let's start talking about Pixar. What can you say about them? I mean, they're possibly the most well-respected animation studio of all time, with how they've been in charge and created plenty of animated films that aren't only beloved, but are considered some of the best films of all time, animation or otherwise. With any sort of praise like that though, there is bound to be some backlash to occur, as Pixar is no stranger to criticism. Sometimes it's for a mistake that's justifiably easy to criticize, and other times it can be very petty and pathetic. There's one criticism that Pixar has gotten with one film that has always bothered me. One that I ended up getting sick of hearing when this movie initially came out. Case in point, let's talk about Inside Out.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
Now, yes, I would definitely consider myself a fan of this movie. In my opinion, it's one of the most creative and well-written Pixar movies that utilizes its Pixar-like concept to a great degree. Though when it first came out, one criticism that I heard about this movie that made people kind of discredit it is the whole idea that Inside Out shouldn't be praised for having an original idea, because that idea in question is not that original. Throughout most of the hype cycle of Inside Out, I heard of a lot of, well, technically speaking, Pixar isn't the first to do this idea because Osmosis Jones and Herman Head did that idea of what goes on inside your mind, so clearly Inside Out is a ripoff. It isn't good. Now, this bothers me, not out of difference of opinions with Inside Out. You're free to not have it as one of your favorite Pixar movies if you don't feel like it. It's not even because this is the only time anyone brings up the show Herman Head in any capacity. Seriously, you're gonna give Pixar crap for having a concept similar to a sitcom that no one has talked about until just now? The reason why this criticism bothers me, because it seems to miss a huge point on what Pixar's identity has always been about. Yes, you are correct that Inside Out wasn't the first to do the idea of what goes on in someone's head in an exaggerated sort of way. But here's the thing, Pixar has always, and I mean always, done stuff like this. The ideas that have appeared in Pixar movies have made their way into other forms of media before Pixar has been able to do them themselves. So, do you seriously think that every other Pixar movie was 100% original? The answer to that question is no. They weren't the first to do a movie about ants and grasshoppers having a conflict. They weren't the first to do a movie about monsters scaring kids as part of their day job. They weren't the first to do something about talking cars. Hell, they weren't even the first to make a story about superheroes being outlawed and the aftermath those heroes had to face in their society. I don't see why Pixar has gotten so much shit with Inside Out when they've done this kind of stuff of taking a previously done idea and making it their own thing constantly throughout their entire career. Don't believe me? Well, let's take a look at Toy Story, a movie that was claimed to be one of the most original films when it came out, right? Ha ha ha! Wrong! Because you might have to consider how Pixar might have taken some inspiration from legend himself, Jim Henson, and his special known as the Christmas toy. Now, you probably haven't heard of this special unless if you really dived into the works of Jim Henson like myself. But here's some background. In 1986, Jim Henson and his team of Muppeteers created a special for the holiday season. This was one of their non-Muppet related Christmas specials to have been released under the Jim Henson brand, alongside Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. It's not too heavily talked about in the realm of Muppet related projects, so what's a better way to make this project more well known than by making a video of it? Not only do I want to make this video for that reason, but also I really really want to dive into this movie and how it inspired a film that many claim to be as original as it is with Toy Story. Because watching this special, you can definitely sense a lot of similarities to both properties in more ways than I initially expected. So my Christmas gift to you guys is a review of The Christmas Toy, where I asked the simple question: did Pixar rip off Jim Henson? Let's find out. The special begins with a short little introduction from Kermit the Frog, as he's the only Muppet character to appear in this special.
In honor of this Christmas season, I've chosen this rather unusual way to introduce our story.
The same thing occurs in Emmett Otter's, where Kermit appears at the beginning and end as sort of the bookends to this special. It makes sense, as he is the Mickey Mouse of the Muppet brand, and to maybe help people familiarize themselves more to this being a Jim Henson project. So I say it's welcome. We are then introduced to the story, as the premise is about a group of toys in the playroom of this family on Christmas Eve. This is a world where toys are secretly alive when no one is looking, so they have their own little stories and adventures when no one is around. Yeah, right off the bat, this already has the same sort of basic premise as Toy Story. But technically speaking, the idea of a story where toys come to life have been around for decades, possibly even centuries, considering how stories like The Nutcracker and The Steadfast Tin Soldier existed long before these movies ever came to be. The toys all start coming out and celebrating the holiday, as Christmas serves as a time for the toys to be eager on who might be a new addition to the room, along with a fear that they might be replaced as the favorite toy for their owner, Jamie. Yeah, that doesn't sound a lot like Toy Story at all, does it? I mean, birthday setting, the first movie, yeah, but they do this during Christmas time too, so don't tell me that there aren't any parallels here. Though, hey, basic premise is one thing. How about the characters? Clearly, the cast of characters here can't be exactly like the likes of Woody, Buzz, Bo Peep, and the others. Well, there are some differences, as the main trio of characters focused on here are a tiger plush known as Rugby, a Raggedy Ann-like doll named Apple, and a little mouse known as Mew, which, in regards to Mew, that's something this special has that surprisingly was never addressed in any of the Toy Story movies. That's actually a pretty neat idea, as Mew technically isn't a toy of the kids in this special, unlike the rest of the cast of characters here. Instead, Mew is actually the toy of the cat they own, which, yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. In the Toy Story movies, we never got to see the idea of toys specifically made for pets. I mean, we definitely saw the toys interactive with pets, but even after 4 movies and a ton of shorts, there was never a toy that was specifically designed to be played by a pet. The movies usually focus on toys being things for kids to play. The toys that are brought to life are the ones that kids themselves represent them to be a character, not really anything else that could be considered a toy. My only guess to why they never expanded on this idea is maybe to avoid them referring to certain kind of toys, if you know what I'm saying. Either way, it's a neat little standout compared to Toy Story, and I almost wish the Pixar movies tackled these ideas too, though nice little idea regardless. But are there any similarities between the casts of characters here? Well, Woody and Rugby Tiger are all around different leads conceptually. One difference is that Rugby is a newer toy, being the main Christmas toy from last year, where Woody was always deemed as the favorite. Rugby is not aware of the rules and traditions regarding the world of toys compared to Woody, who is much more of a leader type. This does lead Rugby to be a little arrogant about being the best toy around, which leads the other toys in this special, particularly Apple, who was the favorite prior, to be a little bit irked with Rugby.
Yes, you do know all about Christmas. I can see that now. You know it's all about you.
That's right, and I want you to know that I don't blame you for being jealous.
Though finding out about the new Christmas toy coming up, much like Woody, Rugby is afraid that whatever big special toys comes for Christmas this year will also take his place as #1 toy. So Rugby gets the idea to go downstairs to take the place of whatever toy is set to be the big Christmas toy. The other toys find out about this and start to worry about Rugby's decision, as we do find out one major difference this does have to Toy Story.
Then we should just stick our heads out and call him back.
Where are you going?
We see, thanks to a rather foolish toy who tries to go outside to find Rugby, that this special actually has more stakes to it than Toy Story in terms of its basic premise. The toys in Andy's room make it a big deal to not get caught by humans with them being alive. Despite all these years this franchise existed, they never really explain why. I guess status quo or whatever, but within the movies, we never get an explanation to why the toys have to be secretive in their universe. Here though, if they get caught out of their original position, they actually freeze forever if a person catches them. Sure, it's a basic magic sort of deal to why they can't get caught, but it does add a little more tension in terms of them not getting caught, because we know that it's basically death for them. It's hard to really feel like there's much at stake in Toy Story because we never learn what the repercussions are for getting caught in this world. Maybe they don't have an explanation just as an excuse to scare the shit out of more troublemaking kids.
So play nice.
The toys are saddened by the loss of their fellow comrade Ditz, who is now frozen forever after making an attempt to find Rugby. And now the toys are worried that Rugby will receive the same fate, though Mew, being the main one who's worried about Rugby, takes the risk and tries to find Rugby so he won't get frozen. However, Mew actually ends up teaming up with Rugby on his quest for a few reasons. For one, Rugby explains to him his desires and why he wants to do this, as being the special toy is the best feeling in the world, and he doesn't want to lose that. Mew agrees to this because of that, and also Rugby seems to be the only other person to care about him, as Mew is seen as kind of an outcast among the toys. Him being a cat toy makes him be looked down upon as lesser to the other toys that are made for kids to play. So at least Rugby isn't as discriminatory towards him, even if he does condescendingly refer to him as a cat toy.
So the cat, maybe being a cat toy isn't so bad after all.
No, it really isn't.
Except for the smell.
You might also notice that Rugby Tiger and Mew are voiced by Dave Goelz and Steve Whitmire, which, considering who Whitmire was later known for and how similar Goelz make this character sound to one of his most popular characters, this is essentially the precursor to the duo of Gonzo and Rizzo. And while not the most memorable Jim Henson creations, both puppeteers do a good job and work off each other very well. So I can definitely see why they were brought back for Gonzo and Rizzo. They bicker in a very similar way to those characters and make for some entertaining banter. In fact, I do want to mention that all the puppeteers do a really good job with their voice performances. You hear a lot more voices that are similar to other Muppet voices, which is to be expected.
I said we're going to learn about Christmas. Or don't you think you need to?
This is big, really big.
I want to make sure you all know what it means.
Though they still fit their characters very well, and still have a lot of creative designs as far as puppet goes. While Rugby and Mew are on their adventure, the other toys are still worried about going out to save them, at the risk of their own fate. However, a few of them decide to take the risk to save their friends, as they sing in song about how it's better to at least attempt to do the impossible instead of not trying at all.
You've got to try the impossible. Dare the incredible. Climb aboard and take a ride. Hope that luck is on your side.
So, a few of the toys, including Apple, do end up meeting up with Rugby and Mew downstairs to see that they're trying to open the gift of the brand new toy. Despite Apple's claim to Rugby that he shouldn't open the gift, he ends up doing so anyway and discovers what the new Christmas toy will be. They find out that it's a space toy known as Meteora, Queen of the Asteroids. There's your space reference similar to another character. When meeting upon the Space Queen, they notice that she herself doesn't realize she's a toy.
I don't have a leader. I have a cat.
planet is this?
The living room?
Yeah, get this. She thinks she's the actual character of Meteora, the real-life queen of the asteroids. Gee, that totally doesn't sound like something from another popular animated movie, right? There is absolutely no way that Pixar and John Lasseter decided to make a character who has the same exact personality trait to have led them to one of the most successful movies of all time, even leading to a spin-off about the movie this character is based on. Ain't no way Pixar plagiarized the spirit of Jim Henson with their own work. That's totally the most original movie in existence, right?
You're mocking me, aren't you?
Anyway, not Buzz Lightyear, I mean Meteora, goes on her way to find out the whereabouts about this strange uncharted area she's in now. This leads to Rugby to go inside her box with the intention of still being the actual Christmas toy instead of Meteora. But Apple doesn't want Rugby to do this, as she then explains to Rugby, despite how good his day was last year being the main Christmas toy, it wasn't so much a good day for her, as Apple was the initial favorite toy before Rugby, and of course, as soon as Rugby comes in, she gets tossed to the sideline, and not given as much attention as she once had.
Except there was one little thing they forgot.
When somebody loved me, everything was beautiful.
She explains to Rugby why she was so heartbroken about it, but it didn't quite matter because the happiness of their owner and the next toy in line matters more than their own happiness. Rugby still doesn't quite get this, as he still wants to be the favorite toy, but they also add in the fact that if Jamie finds out that he's out of place, he'll be frozen forever too. So this certainly leads Rugby to change his attitude towards that, realizing the consequences. So they end up trying to convince Meteora to go back into her box. But it's a little harder said than done, as she doesn't really think she's a toy, as we establish. But they do end up convincing her about how great it is to be a toy, in the main way that any Jim Henson special has of trying to convince someone, through song.
You are lovely, Meteora. Yes, so lovely and smart and brave and strong.
It seems like things are going much better now that Meteora has been convinced of how good it is to be a toy, and Rugby learning not to be as selfish as he once was. So this leads to all the toys going back upstairs to their playroom. However, things go awry when Mew accidentally gets left behind and is found out of his place, leading him to be frozen still. Rugby, being very regretful of how he treated Mew, is now sad about his friend being frozen forever, and then decides to sing a song about how much of a good friend he is.
Old friend, dear friend, friend who has gone away, I want to tell you I love you.
If this song sounds a little bit familiar, this was one of the songs that appears in the Muppet Family Christmas, if you have seen that. You know, the scene where they're all singing carols. Well, they actually end their caroling with this little song from this special, which is a nice way to end a Jim Henson celebration with a neat tribute to one of their own non-Muppet related Christmas specials. This song was so magical that it ends up bringing Mew back to life as a Christmas miracle.
Is that right?
Right? It's better than right. It's the greatest Christmas present anyone could ever dream of.
This leads to the toys celebrating Christmas Day and the return of Rugby and Mew, now that they are safe and sound. Later on, Meteora is eventually taken to the playroom all the toys are in, and then Rugby and Apple have a sudden realization, as their owner, Jamie, does love Meteora, yet she doesn't have a preference to which is the best, as she claims that she loves all of her toys no matter what. This leads to a very magical Christmas, as the new toys have learned not to fight on who's better and realize that they're equal in their own way. Not only that, but Mew,
who did not die,
Oh, isn't that swell?
gets a new little companion too in the mix.
Hi, I'm Mew. Hi, I'm Mew too.
And so, The toys are having a very magical Christmas, and we end off with them singing along and Kermit closing them out.
Well, looks like everything worked out really nicely here.
Leading to a very Merry Christmas indeed. At least until Pixar came along and took this idea, essentially making this special obscure as hell. Now, you're probably thinking, after hearing all of my ranting, man, this guy must really hate Toy Story if he's making a video crapping on it. Actually, no. Quite the contrary. Sure, I ranted about this taking ideas from the Christmas toy, but believe it or not, I think the original Toy Story is ultimately the better project between the two. This isn't to say that the Christmas toy is a poorly executed version of this concept, but Toy Story has the stronger overall story and character when it comes to the concept of toys coming to life. Christmas Toy is still very likable with its character and does enough to make it stand out from Toy Story. But if I'm being honest with myself, there's a lot more to Toy Story's character and a little bit more to the world of Toy Story in general. I mean, it helps that this series got a couple of really great sequels to expand on the concept even further, but even within the first movie, Woody and Buzz's dynamic and character arc have a lot more to them, where the Christmas toy keeps it pretty simple. Not out of fault of the Christmas toy. After all, it is only a 45-minute long special, and the characters of Rugby, Mew, Meteora, and Apple are likable and have their own little arcs that's very nice to see. Yet Toy Story, because it was feature-length, it expanded on their characters with similar desires and needs in a much better way than Christmas Toy did. I still think back to one of the best scenes in Toy Story where Woody ends up comforting Buzz and saying how incredible he is as a toy. Even despite not being the person he wishes he was, it doesn't matter, because Andy loves Buzz for the toy that he is, and that's what's important. There's a lot more set pieces, and of course, the original Toy Story still has a lot of clever jokes and writing that makes it a great movie for anyone of any age. So, why the hell was I bitching about this movie if I love it so much? Well, it was more to illustrate a point, because if you're gonna go on about how something like Inside Out is a ripoff of Osmosis Jones and that sitcom that I'm pretty sure none of you gave a shit about before Inside Out was even a thing, you might as well do the same for Toy Story ripping off the Christmas toy. As I said earlier, Pixar has been taking ideas that have been done in the past since their beginnings. So I don't see why it was such a big deal when Inside Out did it. Even if you think people give Pixar too much credit by saying, it's the first to do this concept, which is admittedly annoying. But I don't think that should automatically discredit how Pixar executed some of these been-done ideas so well. Sure, it's one thing when a movie states that it's the most new and original thing, when in reality, it barely does anything new with a concept that has been done countless times. However, just because a movie, show, video game, or whatever has a similar concept to another, that doesn't automatically make it a ripoff. Execution is what's important, and in the case of a lot of Pixar movies, it's the reason why they have been able to make old ideas feel new. So maybe instead of claiming that Pixar ripped off other ideas and debate on which did it better, be appreciative about how Pixar took something done before and created their own little spin on it. In the same way, I appreciate how the Christmas toy was a cute little spin on this idea as well. Which, if you haven't watched the Christmas toy, it's worth your time. It's not too terribly long, and it's available to watch on Amazon. So, if you want another thing that does the toy come into life concept just done with Jim Henson's puppetry, give it a watch. Just remember that there's always value in seeing similar ideas done in different ways, because that's a great way of really showcasing creativity. Reinventing pre-established ideas is how we get so many creative movies, shows, and whatever storytelling has to offer. And it should be seen that way no matter what, whether it be from the master of puppets himself, Jim Henson, or the studio that revolutionized CGI like Pixar. A simple little idea can come a long way as long as the artist at hand can turn it into something new. So take that for what it's worth.